My name is Cornel Ogutu, and I work for AMPCAN Regional Office. AMPCAN is African Network for Prevention and Protection Against Child Abuse and Neglect. And I am the Regional Coordinator for the East Africa Strengthening National Child Protection Systems project.
How does the National Child Protection Service Systems project purpose to affect or influence social change and awareness to child protection?
Well, the National Child Protection Systems project is a very relevant project because of a number of reasons. One, it looks at how systemic processes are to protect children. It basically looks at how coordination is done to protect the larger group of children. We are aware that almost half of the population comprises of children. And if we are going to move towards a multi-sectoral approach, then we are definitely going to protect children adequately. So it's a question of bringing all the multi-sectoral teams to come and work together in order to protect children. And obviously when this one is done, children are more protected, structures are more clear, processes are a bit distinct, where results are seen, and in a coordinated manner, then the children are well protected in areas, especially child abuse and neglect.
So what is the purpose of the National Children Protection Systems regional meeting, and why now?
Now, the regional meeting is very, very critical. In fact, this is a review meeting, meaning that we have had various attempts in the last 2 to 3 years to bring groups together. The purpose of bringing groups together is to create a platform. And this platform is really necessary for key stakeholders to sit down and deliberate on issues that affect children. We know in all these countries that we are talking about, 7 Eastern African countries, there are issues that they are grappling with. Issues to do with child labor, issues on child trafficking, issues on gender-based violence. So generally, violence against children is an issue that all the 7 countries are grappling with. And the question about why now, I would basically say that the process started way back. And what you are trying to do is trying to see what progress are we making. We are kind of trying to take stock of how the governments are taking the lead role to ensure that National Child Protection Systems agenda is taken to the next level. In as much as I said before, we are looking at a multi-sectoral approach to child protection. Various actors have their particular mandates to address issues that affect children. But the bottom line is that the government or the state must take the lead role. And when they take the lead role, it would be a bit easier to coordinate issues. It will be a bit easier to ensure that laws and policies are implemented. The government has the sole responsibility of beefing up human resource that has requisite, skills and knowledge to address matters related to child protection. So the question of why now means that we are really taking stock and we are trying to share challenges that we are facing in its implementation. And it is not a new agenda. Systems approach to child protection is the way to go, and therefore countries must embrace that way of working in order to adequately protect children.
When you say bring groups, which groups are these?
Now, when I say groups, working in a systemic approach is more of strategic, meaning that we are looking at both state and non-state actors. When you say state, we are looking at the key ministries that are in charge of child protection, and also non-state actors that has civil society organizations and other partners who bear the burden in child protection. So coordination really here is key, where we are seeing different actors coming with different roles to play to ensure that they complement each other. So these groups have been formed particularly to support already existing efforts and also provide coordination mechanisms to adequately protect children at both levels. We are saying both nationally and at the community level. At the end of the day, what we're interested in is looking at the interaction between national levels and community levels. So we are looking at various teams, but the particular teams that are coming together in this regional review meeting are key government officials and key non-state actors who bear the burden in child protection in the 7 countries.
What is AMPAC's call to action for the government, policymakers, and the society?
Our call for action is to work together with government. Working in a systemic way is the only way, because we are talking about almost half of the population of most of these countries. So the call for action to government is to ensure that they adequately budget, they adequately involve all the decision makers, including children themselves, because children have been forgotten, and the aspect of child participation is very key. And if you look at how we are systemically working on child protection matters, we are looking at the key components that include coordination, and we are calling upon the government to be the driver. Civil societies will only play complementary roles. We are looking at adequate human resource capacity, where the government is beefing up human resource where possible. The question of budgeting for children, the need to finance the programs that go towards providing services towards children, and obviously analyzing data, looking at what are the trends, what are the prevalence in child protection, and putting together will really help governments to come up with ways of resourcing where need be. So call for policymakers is actually to look at what are the policies that are working and what are the gaps to ensure that no stone is left unturned. For the question about the public, we're also saying the public also need to be aware. We cannot have a situation where the government is working in solitude. The government must also work with the people, where the people should not really be, and specifically children, should not just be mere recipient of services. Their active involvement is very key.
How big is the problem in your view?
The problem is huge, I would say. That is why our call for action requires concerted effort. All the key stakeholders, including private sector, are called upon to ensure that the questions of financing are adequately planned, so that it becomes almost everybody's business, but with the key distinct roles. So it's not something that we would say is going to be resolved in the near future. It is something that we are saying it must be well planned, it must be well programmed, and all the key stakeholders brought on board. And finances are also put towards that. So adequate budgeting and full involvement of the key stakeholders is really key.
Us being a third world nation, plus also all our neighbors,
Yes.
some being really bad in terms of development-wise, in terms of South Sudan.
Mm-hmm.
What would that do to this, try to alleviate the problem? Because as much as we want to alleviate it, it's getting even bigger because these two things are connected with each other. Yeah.
Looking at how the problems, or rather the challenges that Africa is facing, we are seeing conflicts all over, and conflict has really a huge impact on children. So efforts have already been put underway for stakeholders to come together and see how do they address peace issues. As you can see, the problem doesn't really call for action for only one ministry. It's a question of calling all the relevant ministries, including the Ministry of Planning and Finance, so that they can allocate some resources to really promote peace and security across Africa. Because children are suffering a great deal, and at the end of the day, they are left in the development agenda. They are really pushed at the periphery. So poverty itself also is a contributing factor. Therefore, what I would really recommend is a raft of measures where we are looking at combination of efforts to address problems holistically, including poverty, so that we are addressing matters that affect children in totality.
Is this an initiative of Africans, by Africans, for Africans, or is the international community also tied into this one?
Well, if you look at child protection matters, one would definitely see the inclination towards Africans taking action. We cannot just sit back and wait for the West to really show us, the way. Obviously, we would want to borrow practices from what has worked in the West. So once we borrow, we do not want to adopt it as a wooden jacket, but kind of try to adjust and align it with our needs. So Africans have real solutions, but the challenges including corruption, challenges including bad governance, the very components that are leading to us not achieving our development agenda.
Is it a catch-22 saying Africans have the answers yet? It's we Africans with our own cultures which has also perpetuated some of these problems?
Well, I would say sometimes we are caught in a quagmire, because our cultures, mostly, at least according to what studies say, are a contributing factor to the challenges that we are seeing. Take, for example, female genital mutilation. Take, for example, early marriage. Those are factors that are well embedded within our traditions, meaning that they will always impede any development agenda. They will always impede on actions that are put forth, and therefore there is need to perhaps create more and more awareness and tagging the very stakeholders who are directly involved in perpetuating this, as well as the beneficiaries themselves.